Welcome. I'm Mary-Charlotte Grayson, Director of Events for the National Indian Gaming Association. Thank you so much for joining us today for our exciting and informative webcast series, Tribal Gaming and the New Normal, with your co-hosts Victor Rocha and Jason Giles. Today's discussion will focus on our partnership with NCAIED and the 2021 NIGA trade show. Before we introduce the presenters, I would like to go over some housekeeping items to keep in mind. All audience members are in listen-only mode, which means you are muted. We will be monitoring audience engagement on the dashboard and do encourage you to participate by using the question panel. There will be time for questions at the end of the presentation. We are recording this webinar and you will receive an email with a copy of the recording so that you may listen and refer back to it any time. This webinar, as well as others in our series, will also be made available on our website at indiangamingtradeshow.com under the Education tab in the coming week. Without further delay, let me introduce Victor, Conference Chairman with the National Indian Gaming Association, and Jason Giles, our Executive Director.
Thank you, Mary-Charlotte. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Victor Rocha. My co-host is Jason Giles, and this is the National Gaming Association's New Normal. Welcome. In today's conversation, we're talking about the recent announcement of the National Gaming Association and the National Center for American Indian Enterprise Development's announcement that they're joining forces in Las Vegas for a combined trade show. So today's guests are Chairman Ernie Stevens, Jr. From the National Gaming Association. Welcome, sir. Our dear friend Chris James couldn't be here today. He's in transit. But we got Chad Morshad, Vice President of the National Center for American Indian Enterprise Development, Derrick Watchman, our dear friend, Chairman of the National Center for the American Indian Enterprise Development, I should say NCAIED. And then we've invited Prairie Bighorn from the Executive Director for the American Indigenous Business Leaders, or AIBL, and hopefully we can get her to join or someone from the organization during the middle of the call. But everyone, welcome. How are you guys doing?
Doing good, Victor.
Great.
Good.
Thanks for inviting us. Appreciate being here. And good morning, Mr. Chairman. Ernie, good to see you again.
Morning.
So you know, this is a pretty historic occasion. You know what I mean? The fact that we as trade groups, as we as Native Americans, although you know we are from the same side of the aisle from the business side of it, this is really one of the first times that we've combined forces. I think this is pretty historic. Derrick, what do you say?
Well, good morning again, Victor, and Yate to my Navajo relatives out there. Yes, this is quite unique, and our RES 2021 is actually going to be our 35th annual conference, and it's hosted by the National Center for American Indian Enterprise Development, National Center as we call it. And so, but we're quite pleased and happy that we're going to join forces. We think that given the impacts of COVID-19, which we'll get into, we will be able to generate a lot of synergies, because as we move into, as I said, the new norm, recovery, we're going to have to look at, at least from the National Center standpoint, look at, all the tools and resources available to restart, jumpstart, I'll say Indian country and the businesses that we all, know and love in our area. So, I'll start with that, but it's great to be here. Thank you.
Thank you. Chad, welcome. This is your first time here on the New Normal. Welcome.
Appreciate it, and good morning once again. But tonight I couldn't echo Derrick's comments enough. We're excited about this partnership together and hosting it in Las Vegas. As we were following the COVID updates, I think we're following all the safety protocols and hosting these events and moving forward. But we're excited to host and offer different sessions, a trade show. In addition to the business competition with AIBL this year. Last year is our first time we partnered with AIBL on the student youth competition. And so that'll be a key component again moving forward. But RES will once again have, over 50 sessions in combination at this conference. So we're excited about it.
Wow. Chairman Stevens, welcome back. How are you doing, sir?
Doing great.
Yeah, how's the family?
Family's well. I think that it's the only province that's been brutally cold here in Oneida, and the other problem was that we should have won the Super Bowl, and the referees just kind of took it away from us again. Now, let me move on. I want to say thank you for letting me be on here today. And I want to say that what I want to say, one of the founding board members of the National Center is a gentleman by the name of Ernie Stevens Sr. And if you look, he's all around me today in my pictures in the background. And he is a United States Marine Corps Staff Sergeant, combat veteran, Korea, and spent many years between LA, Sacramento, Phoenix, founding, like I said, a founding member of the National Center, and over a decade in Washington, D.C., started under the Nixon administration. He retired under the Carter administration. So he taught me about bipartisanship and diplomacy, and I do my best every day to listen. So if I could just thank you for allowing me to be on today, and allow me to wish a happy birthday to my father. He's very much living and strong, and I just called over to the nursing home, and they said he's doing well, and actually they allow 15-minute visits just recently after almost a year of not seeing him. So I'm scheduled to see my daddy tonight at 6:30.
Wow. Well, you know, what people don't know is actually right before the pandemic, I was out in Wisconsin during Rick Hill's funeral, and I went with Chairman Stevens over to see his father, and they have this amazing healthcare facility for their elders on their Indian reservation that is just a shining example of how the elders should be taken care of, and more importantly, what gaming and the revenue does, and the end results, which is taking care of our culture, taking care of our elders and stuff like that. So I know from personal experience how important that is, and I think that's amazing, Chairman. You know, I'm sure your father misses you just as much. Yeah, it was. So Jason,
Yes,
how are you doing, my friend? You know, this is a very momentous occasion. You know, after a year, you know, I think one of the big questions has always been, at least during the last year, is, you know, we had to cancel our show 2 weeks before it was supposed to go on, and that was talk about trauma. That was pretty terrible. It was horrible, you know.
Yeah.
So you know, one of the things that people don't know about Jason, and that I've had the good privilege to know, is that Jason is a hypochondriac, and you know, he's actually, you know what, you know, as a lawyer, you know what I mean, he sees things we don't see, and I think a lot of that has to do with, you know, he was really ahead of the curve when it came to understanding the problem that was on the horizon. And you know, when we were in Europe last year for London for ICE, you know, we were talking about canceling. They were talking about canceling G2E Asia, and all these stuff were on the table. So you know, we were thinking about our show, and we were hopefully trying to get our show underneath the line before it quit. And that reminds me, by the way, you guys got your show in right before, didn't it? You guys, like, RES20 was happened, and then the world shut down like the next day.
Yep.
It is almost at actually the last day. COVID hit pretty hard, and you know, we were very nervous about whether or not we would have any patrons that maybe were impacted by COVID. But yeah, we just at this nick of time, and so you know, obviously we feel bad that the NIGA conference had to be canceled. But you know, we got in there right at the cusp, and it was great show. And so, but you know, I know you were there, and Chairman Stevens was there. It was a great show, and so, you know, it was unfortunate, but you know, this upcoming conference in July, we know it's going to be bigger and better, as they say.
Well, you know, and in NIGA, you know, we waited to make this announcement, and we had so much concern and anticipation, and just people wanting to know, when are you going to get back? When are you going to announce a date? And you know, if we would have announced a date any step of the way, and Jason, you can back me up on this, we would have canceled, you know what I mean? Yeah. And that's why we wouldn't, you know, put our flag in the ground and saying this is what we're going to do, because there was that, you know, it was a moving target. Am I correct, Jason?
Yeah. So let me back that up, Victor. My hypochondriac syndrome, you know, that I lived for almost 12 years in Hawaii, and one of the things that made an impression on me, the bird flu was a big deal in Hawaii, a big deal. And Asian tourism stopped. There were many cases in Hawaii. There was a little boy I remember who got it and died. And I used to call home to my parents and I was like, hey, this bird flu is, every week, went on for a few months, and they were like, nothing here and nothing here. And then it finally went away. And when this COVID hit, I just remember that experience in Hawaii where it was really a big deal. And we happened to be in ICE when some of the first cases were being reported worldwide. And you saw a lot of Asians at Heathrow Airport, all with their masks on in a quarantined area. So it was scary from the get-go. That's kind of where my thing came from a little bit. But to your point, Victor, and we're not out of the woods yet. We've set a date for July 19th. And let me just set the stage for our guests today. And I'm so glad you came on. It's too bad Chris James couldn't be here today, but he'll get everyone caught up. And we're glad that you guys are here today to give everybody. But let me just give everybody a quick background because I know you have a lot of questions. One, we're going to post on this Zoom call just released today the Nevada governor's conditions for COVID reopening. And they are a phased in plan, goes all the way to May 1st. And even at May 1st, this best case scenario, May 1st, he's talking about a 75% opening. So our show is well after May 1st. So we're hoping that everybody can keep getting the vaccines, the variants don't take off, and all these factors. Secondly, this is a brand new trade show and convention center. There's been no shows held there. It was completed last March and then they had a shutdown. So for all our vendors on here and everybody, we still have to make a site visit on March 4th, and Victor's kind enough to drive up there and join some of our folks to go see exactly what the layout is. We should have plenty of space. The question is, what if it's only 75% space? What if it's only 50% of the space? That's where things are going to get tricky. And then to your point, Chairman Watchman, with the registration and everything, that is our plan. Our plan is to integrate the two shows. We'll have like a one super package. If somebody wants to pay and have full access to both shows, great. If somebody just wants to go to the RES show, fine. If somebody just wants to come to the NIGA show, great. Or we'll have hybrids of both as well. And then lastly, and then I'll turn it over to Chairman Stevens and everyone to get into the nuts and bolts and the real optimistic part of this. Lastly, if you paid for a booth at our trade show in 2020, if you were an attendee that paid to come to our show, you're going to get credit for that. And you will not have to pay again to come to this show this year. So that's really all we know right now. And when is registration going to be open? Can't tell you. When is booth sales going to be open? We can't tell you right now. Sometime throughout the month of March, we're going to be making those decisions. And we've got a full 6 months here. So we have a lot of time to address all these key questions. I would just tell everybody, watch what is happening with COVID. I mean, that's all we can do. These variants are very scary. Please get your vaccines. I know the Biden administration right now is on the fence of whether they want to have a vaccine passport for domestic air travel. Airlines are going crazy over it. Of course, they don't want it. Of course, the governor of Florida doesn't want it. God knows what he wants. But, if they're going to require a vaccine passport to get on a domestic flight, I hope we have enough attendees that are vaccinated. I know we're all trying to get our vaccines right now, and some of us are closer than others, but really just every once a week, just check how your COVID numbers are doing, and let's just try to roll out those vaccines. And I'll just say Indian country is doing a fantastic job. I can't believe, with the troubles and the history of IHS, you never would have expected Indian country to basically be a leader, just like you never would have expected West Virginia to be a leader. But it just seems like the more your local community and can work together to get these vaccines out, the better off you are. So with that, we'll delve into the more optimistic side of this, but I just wanted to let the folks know we're studying the attendees today, and I see a lot of our vendors on there and a lot of our big companies, so that's great.
Well, I had to Google hypochondriac, so I thought that's what I think we've all become hypochondriacs because of what's happening around us. I thought you meant how Jason kind of just rattles it off there and lets it fly and lays it on the line. be more straightforward, I guess, is there. But used to that, and that is a strength as well for the most part. Yeah, I think that, you know, for me, a couple of things I like to again congratulate the tribal leadership throughout any country, because those folks have been on the front line. You know, sons that served out this pandemic, and you know, they were out there. They have families and they're people too, but they got to be on the front line. And to that they're just two of hundreds of tribal leaders that took this head on, that had no answers. For me, I looked around the room and I was like, what would my father say? I couldn't even get into the nursing home to see him. And I constantly said to myself, what would Rick Hill say? And these things that I try to project them through my heart and through my memory and through history. But the main thing we did is right what we're doing right now is working, you know, with my good friend and colleague Derrick and all the folks throughout Indian country, with NCAIED and their leadership and all the regional organizations. That's what we did. And to that extent, we have created what would be more like a new normal, and we have to rely on that. And as we go forward, we may be able to get back to some of the things we used to do so well. But I think as we go forward, we're really creating what our new energy is going to be. And so I think that the main thing is that we haven't learned from this is safety. And you know, I apologize. You know, we kind of got a little energetic in trying to schedule this trade show, and you know, we got a little energetic with our projections and our numbers. And you know, that's my responsibility. So I am energetic, but we're not going to breach any safety protocols. We are not going to go beyond what we can do. And that's why I think Jason talks about that, you know, with the vaccines rolling out, and with the Biden administration committed to get these vaccines and establish the strength of our safety. These are the kind of protocols that we're gonna establish. And we've been under a lot of different kinds of pressures, and whether we've canceled or we postponed 2 trade shows. And we did that for the safety of Indian country and for the safety of the United States of America. I mean, what time you talk about, you know, 7, 8, 9,000 people, we have to take that seriously. At the same time, it's caused us a lot of struggle, a lot of challenge, but we're working our way through it, because nothing is more important than the safety of the people that we work for. So, and again, coming back to the, you know, the gaming commissioners, I don't know if they ever leave the trade, they leave their facilities, certainly their compliance folks and the frontline employees. I've seen personally our own gaming manager, Louise Cornelius, and her staff right on the front line as we started to reopen and slowly walk ourselves back into the industry, so we can get our folks working and get the economic wheels turning again. And then you know, everybody has to deal with, and God bless them, the frustration of our constituents and our customers and the folks we work with. You know, some are impatient and they want to get back to work. They want everything to be right again. And it may not be the fault of the leadership, but when they signed up for that job, they get the blame, and they have to deal with it. And I think they've done a great job. Those are the kind of things we have to deal with. And some of the toughest things I've ever seen is, you know, we have to take it slow. We have to be careful, and we have to be safe. And I think that is a true reflection of this trade show. We're going to go in this thing. We got 6 months to do it right. We will not bend the rules, but I think that we got a great chance if America and our industry stands together and are safe and follow all the rules. We got a great chance of knocking this thing out of the park. And whatever those numbers are, they are, and we're not going to go crazy, but we certainly need to get our wheels turning, need to get our economic wheels turning. So again, those gaming commissioners, gaming professionals, and the tribal enterprise folks we work with, it's really, really imperative that we walk carefully and slowly, but we can't take a step back, because the saddest thing I've seen throughout all of this is not the watching folks with 20 plus years experience have to pack up their bags and go home because there's no money. The gaming is moving slower. Other enterprises are moving slower. We have a lot of people that are laid off temporarily, some laid off permanently. Those people can take other opportunities or go into other trades, but we've got to get the economic wheel turning. That's our job. And that's why it's so important that, you know, Jason has worked with the National Center and Chris on this economic development subcommittee. And that really is what this energy kind of comes out of that. And so we have to work together to get this wheel turning. And again, in the interim, the leaders to every time I go to the casino once in a while, I don't spend a lot of money in the casino and I never win. But my wife, she's pretty good at it. And she always comes out with money. I don't know how she does it. But every time I get there, I see a tribal member or a community member, and they're constantly wiping those machines, constantly looking out for our safety. We have security constantly. If you flip that badge below your nose and try to cheat a little bit, he's telling you to got to cover the nose. These are the kind of things that are going to make America safe again and going to help us to run a safe operation. And again, I want to emphasize that we're not going to bend any rules going into Las Vegas, but we're going to do our best to accommodate the best kind of conference that we could have. And we're very, very excited about it.
You know, Chairman, you bring up one of the most important points about this entire conference. And, you know, Jason, I know you'll back me up on this, is that, you know, people are like going, why are you doing a conference? Why are you going to do it now? Health and safety. And those are very, very valid questions. But, you know, Jason and I have been talking for the last year is like, how do we get back to business? You know, one of the things that we've learned, if we learn anything about this during this pandemic, is that, you know, business still goes on, but it's been very difficult. You know what I mean? How do you do sales? How do you get back to where we were before? And, you know, we've been waiting, and one of the things that we've learned is that, you know, the online component, the hybrid component, these type of meetings work really well online. You know, I think the educational stuff works really well, but it's hard to do business online. It's hard to do a trade show online. You know, everyone that's been trying to do it, they've done these rooms, and you buy a room and it's supposed to be, you know, the terrestrial version has been ported online, and some things work and some things don't. I think the one thing that we've been missing is having these trade shows, and Jason and I have always been talking about how, you know, how do we get back to doing business? How do we create a space that is safe where we can do business again? And I think that is where we're going with this, is to create a place where we can do commerce again. Go ahead, Jason, I apologize.
Well, all the credit to Chad and Derrick, and maybe Chad, you can comment on this, but look, this was also very fortuitous. I don't even know how we ended up talking to NCAIED. Ernie's on the board, but you know, we like, hey, they're going to have a trade show in July in Vegas, and we were just happened to be looking in Vegas, so it was all very fortuitous, first of all, and then secondly, you know, NCAIED has done a great job over the years. You guys are really the ones pushing procurement, pushing that interactive aspect. And it's unfortunate because last December we held a great procurement conference in San Diego. It was an experiment and it went fabulously. It was very lightly attended, but to keep, you know, 150 people in a room for 8 hours with no interruption, that's the kind of business you're talking about, Victor. And Chad, if you want to comment on that. Go ahead.
It's credit to Derrick's and Chris's leadership, I think, in scheduling this in July. You know, originally RES was scheduled for March. We did postpone to July for a lot of the same safety, you know, concerns that Ernie brought up, you know, moving forward. So I think, you know, I also want to state too, is I know, you know, Jason mentioned like the guidelines for the state of Nevada. There's also the guidelines for Caesars Entertainment. And so I think encouraging folks to go out and take a look at that Caesars Entertainment, because there are a number of things that they put in place. You know, and also I think, and Ernie mentioned the staff and commissioners. I'm also one of those commissioners myself. I'm chairman of the Caldwell Confederate Tribes for gaming now. And so I think we're excited to get back to work. I talked to a number of different commissioners, you know, so I'm actually in a casino right now down in Louisiana. And so it's something where we're excited, I think, for this partnership and moving forward. But, you know, I think we're doing under the guidance of safety, following CDC guidance. Also, I think, and Jason mentioned this, and Victor, you brought it up too, is that a part of RES is also going to be virtual. And so even if you cannot attend, there still is the virtual option to attending at least part of our trade show as well as our sessions. So there are multiple options for people to actually, you know, be present during RES and NIGA.
Yeah, and I think that is an important part, is that it will still be hybrid. You know, if you can attend, we still will make an effort to make sure that this education is still out there. You know, there's no going back. You can't put the genie in the bottle. There's a real benefit in this, to having online and virtual conferences. I personally, as an organizer, I love it because I can get the best minds, and they don't have to be in my location. You know what I mean? So for me to have even more valuable conversations, I think that's one of the benefits. You know, let's talk about health and safety. You know what I mean? That's a really big issue. You know,
Yeah,
Derrick,
yeah.
go ahead.
Well, as you say, out Derrick's way, they're one of the most impacted areas in the nation. And how's it going out your way, Derrick?
Well, first of all, again, good morning, and you know, my heartfelt loss to a lot of our Navajos that passed away. But you know, congratulations to our Navajo leadership. You know, this COVID just hit us really, really hard, and so, you know, and the impacts of COVID-19 will be felt, you know, for a long, long time. But COVID has certainly raised a lot of the deficiencies that we have, you know, in our neck of the woods. You know, lack of infrastructure, you know, lack of basic services that many Americans take for granted. And so, but our leadership is doing very well with continuing quarantine, lockdowns. I know that that's kind of a, you know, a difficult situation, but you know, our leadership has locked down the reservation on weekends, and so that has really helped to contain the spread of COVID-19. We had the White House declare a national emergency, so with FEMA and the National Guard, there's a big effort to get everybody vaccinated. And so there's roughly 170,000 Navajos that reside on the reservation. And the goal is to at least get 100,000 Navajos vaccinated. I just got my second vaccination the other day, partly because of my age and, you know, just kind of the work that they do. And so, but our economy here on Navajo is still shut down. It's because of the continued rates. Like, for example, the Navajo Nation Gaming Enterprise is still shut down, and it has been for a year. And so, I used to be the leader for Navajo Gaming. So obviously, you know, I feel for the thousands of employees that work at Navajo Gaming, or actually some of them are laid off. And so, I hope that this COVID lifts soon. But you know, speaking about, you know, the health impacts, it's been devastating here on Navajo. So as we move into this summer, I think, you know, what, at least as a chairman of the board for the National Center, you know, hopefully we bring hope, we bring, you know, there is opportunities, there is light at the end of the tunnel. And so, but in terms of, you know, coming to the conference, certainly we're going to follow all the CDC requirements. And we hope that, you know, as many of the attendees are vaccinated. I know in some cases, you know, it's someone are questioning, should I get vaccinated or not? We think that you should, you know, so when you come to RES and NIGA, you know, we hope that you're vaccinated and you wear your mask so that not only do you protect yourself, but you protect, you know, all your friends and your clients and business acquaintances around you. And so, but, you know, we look forward to, as a chairman of the board, I look forward to this coming summer, just for, you know, for the simple reason of hope, you know, and along the lines of resiliency and moving forward. I know on Navajo, many of the small businesses are shut down still. And many reservations, including Navajo, are heavily dependent on tourism, likewise with the gaming industry. And so with that sector shut down, I have a lot of relatives that sell jewelry, you know, they can't do anything right now. And so I'm hoping that, you know, soon we can open up so that all of us Indian country, you know, can continue to prosper. And so I think the question came up, you know, are people willing to attend? And just as being chairman of the board, I've had a lot of vendors call and say, you know, when can we get there? You know, a lot of interested folks saying we're going to be there. Yes, we're going to have a hybrid approach, but I think, well, given the occupancy requirements, I think we're going to have a great turnout. That's my forecast, a great turnout, just because of, you know, how do we move forward in this new economy? How do we move forward in doing business? A lot of businesses have turned to an online platform, and it's helped to pay the bills. But, you know, I think moving forward, we're going to have a hybrid approach, online and basically in-person sales, you know, not only at the casinos, but, you know, for the local vendors. And so,
Well, you know, Derrick, for Derrick, for us, it's really hard to sell a slot machine or a table game, especially these new virtual ones online and stuff like that. And so,
Well, actually, Victor, I'm speaking to this, and this is probably a whole nother topic, but sports gaming and fantasy sports. And so, we're going to have to figure out how to bring the two together. I'm a former gaming exec. I've been following that really, really closely. And that's going to be a big challenge for all of us, and so that I raise that because I think of the opportunities on that front. So
yeah, well, you're absolutely right. As a matter of fact, from the NIGA perspective, we will have a very strong emphasis on sports betting and
Exactly.
the whole new virtual world, because the pandemic. And what, it brings an interesting point is that this isn't business as usual. We're in the tail end of a pandemic, and that's kind of bold even to say that, because as Jason mentioned, we have different variants, and and listen, this thing could break out again, and then we'd have to do the responsible thing. Now, there's a couple points I'd like to go back to, Derrick, that you mentioned, and one of them is vaccinations. I've been having this conversation about mandatory vaccinations, and I'm the kind of person, I don't think mandatory is a word I don't really like to use. I don't think people like to hear mandatory. But I think, we should incentivize people being vaccinated, just like we incentivize people being there on the last day of the trade show, and encourage it. And, one of the ideas that I have is that I'm talking about creating a position in here, a health and safety officer, have someone that helps and makes sure that the rule guidelines are followed, and that we have a safe space as possible, that everything is, the touch points, the sanitation stations and stuff like that, is that we're really being proactive in keeping the place safe and bringing some of these policies from the reservation and some of these health and safety standards to the conference, and that people can feel comfortable knowing that when you come to the conference, that you're going to be in a place that is safe as humanly possible, I see. Go ahead, Jason.
Well, maybe this is a question for Ernie and Derrick, and you guys are going to jump on me, but correct me if I'm wrong, but back in the day, the polio vaccine was mandatory. You just got a letter in the mail, show up at this school and get your polio vaccine. So, a lot of this vaccination stuff, if you don't want to get it, fine. But if you don't want to get it, there's got to be ramifications. And I this is my military background. When
Right.
I was in the Marines, you just got poked and prodded. And when I went overseas, I don't even know how many shots they were giving me. I don't even know what for, but you just lined up in your underwear and got the shots. And so I don't
Well, I
Chairman Stephen, it's okay.
Yeah, I feel that this health and safety officer, and again, this is just a concept right now, can help with the information for vaccinations in all 50 states, and health and safety and Indian health and stuff like it. So having someone that facilitates this, and not just, just saying, well, we hope everyone's being healthy and stuff, but having someone that helps facilitate it and say, hey, I need a little help, I need that. So having someone like that, I've been talking to Andrew Hofstetter about this. And I think, having someone that is proactive and that is looking out for the tribes, and someone that you can reach out to, it's like, hey, how do I vaccinate it? A lot of people don't know. So I think we have to be proactive about it. And, listen, I like the idea of mandatory vaccinations. I think in a hybrid world, we can do it, but I also think, it might be a little too far. I don't know. It could happen. We just don't know. All this stuff is going to be worked out in the wash. What do you think about that, Chad?
Yeah, I think even right now in the state of Nevada, there's health and safety plans that we're going through and looking at submitting as far as the conferences go, and what kind of measures we're taking and putting in place. I think, and I think Jason mentioned it early on with the administration floating the idea of even domestic travel with tests. It's something I think, I'm not sure what direction this administration is going to go in as far as what the requirement is, but I think it's, as far as having these large group gatherings, of course, it'd be encouraged, and getting the vaccination and taking all the precautions. I've been in Vegas. I was up there September, October, and November. Vegas was back to normal when I was there. The only thing that wasn't there were conferences. And so on the casino floor, they actually employed the health and safety employees on the floor, making sure everybody was wearing their masks, hand sanitizing every time someone left the machine, they're wiping it down. And so at least Caesars Entertainment was taking all the precautions I saw while I was up there as a customer. So it's something where I think is, if you can be diligent as possible, and I've been traveling, pretty much since June, I take every precaution necessary, including getting tests and everything else. So I think you have to be able to look out for your fellow, I guess employee if you're working with the casinos or a fellow patron, but it's something to just take all the precautions and encourage, vaccinations, hand sanitizing, masks and all that kind of stuff. So I think it's important and we can't preach it enough.
Chairman Stevens, I mean, Oneida is a big reservation. You got a lot of population there. You're also in a very conservative county, and you've seen it up front. People not wanting to wear masks and all that. I mean, how is Oneida government approaching this? I mean, I think they're another good test case. Just they're in a conservative county and having to battle this.
Turn your speaker on, sir. Keep it up. You're going. Do you know semaphore?
Semaphore.
No.
Should be the lower left. Lower left, the little button.
There you go. You got it. There you go.
My guide left, so I'm at the mercy. So I better say everything I can right now. But we from day one, and I'm not going to. I won't, because I don't think it's reflective of just our community. I don't want to really get too much into some of the conservative behaviors in our world, because we're no nonsense from day one, and we have been safety first, protocols first, and if there's no smoking in the casino, there's no buffet. And like I said earlier, I seen my security guard. There was a lady sitting next to me, and she had the mask below her nose. He came over and very politely made her flip it over her nose. So take your temperature. Everything is by the book. Everything is 100% safety protocol, and that's the way we're doing it. And I've been to a few different casinos in the area, and everybody's doing it the same way, because when it's all done, we are all experiencing people not being able to work, people losing their jobs after 20 years. But the most important thing that we have to look at is, if we're not safe, then people are going to die. And that's the bottom line. And we've seen too many people pass on. So we're 100% at it and taking it very serious. And I think that's reflective of the entire Indian gaming industry overall. I'm really, really safe to say that.
Yeah. I think it's important that we bring these stringent requirements from the reservation to the trade shows, that people feel safe, that they know that we're doing everything possible.
Well, for Derrick, for Derrick, do you anticipate RES being any different from this time? I know you're going to have a hybrid model so people can join online at certain sessions, but in terms of the structure and basically your content, are you looking at it being different? Because NIGA, we're going to have to make some adjustments, and I'll get into those, but I'm wondering on your end, NCAIED.
Well, thank you, Jason. The planning for RES 2021 is actually on the same lines as last year, building the program, but, we're trying to emphasize networking, and obviously with a hybrid model, that's going to be a challenge. But for those in person, we're going to try to, obviously within guidelines, really press networking, because that's really the key in business, but we run our Native Edge Institute. So we're going to have an offshoot of that. We're going to be working with AIBL and on their business plan. We think that's very, very important to incorporate the youth. And so we're going to have, a lot of youngsters, so to speak. I can say that now, and being a part of it, because we think that that's very, very important. And also we're going to deploy matchmaking programs, business development. So our programming and the planning that we're looking at is very similar to what we've done in the last 10 years, the last decade. And so, but obviously, as we would talk about with the safety protocols, it's got to be reasonable and within reason. And so, making sure that everyone wears masks. I think, we're going to follow what the state of Nevada and the Paris Hotel is going to require us to do. And so, in many cases, hopefully we won't have anybody that strays from that. But purely, the big focus is how do we get past, the damage that many of our businesses have experienced, loss of revenue, loss of employees, loss of markets. And so we're going to try to emphasize that. And so, but in terms of opportunities, by joining the two conferences, we think at the National Center that there's many synergies. And so I've always been an advocate of, buy local, buy native. And so how do we encourage, the marrying, if you will, of our native businesses and our native casinos? And so I know as a small business person, some of us natives aren't equipped to be a vendor to a casino in our neighborhood just because of mere size. And so how do we bring those opportunities together? So I'm getting past the safety protocols, but that's basically our goal is how do we unite and almost basically have an explosion, if you will, in our Indian communities. And so we have a great economic engine, and that's Indian casinos, and we have a lot of able-bodied native businesses around the country. How do we bring that together? So that's the big emphasis of our trade show and our workout sessions, our workshops. And so, but hopefully we'll have great attendance. And so our Native Edge Institute platform has been really good. We've been basically taping and recording that, so those are available. And so
Chad, is NCAIED, you guys are still selling booths and you're going to have, a trade show for yourselves. Is that correct?
Yeah, correct. We
Yes.
have roughly around 250, I think, different booths available there. That's selling right now. We're still selling some tickets. I think about, it is still an ongoing sales process. And like Derrick said, but, he mentioned our Native Edge Institute platforms. I think it's also something that is really a measuring stick for future conferences. We started a hybrid event last month for the first time since COVID in Choctaw. We had a small amount of people in Choctaw that was at their casino there when we did our Native Edge Institute. And so I'm actually today in Louisiana, in Coshada, we're doing a small Native Edge Institute tomorrow, part in person, part hybrid. So there is some of a measuring stick going forward. People are willing to come out a little bit more. And so we're doing, like we said, just small hybrid events and moving those forward once a month.
What kind of response are you getting with those hybrid events, Chad?
We're maxing it out. I mean, we're in large conference rooms and doing the whole separation and following protocols, but we're maxing them out in person at between the casinos, 20, 25 people. And then the rest of it is online and virtual. But, that's done on purpose. We don't want to have, 200 people show up to the NEI, but we want to make sure we're being responsible and slowly bringing it back over the next few months.
Oh, go ahead.
We're actually following the occupancy requirements. And
Yeah,
so,
correct.
25%. And so, when we get to Las Vegas, we're hoping that we're at least 75% and beyond. So, fill the seats.
Yeah, Jason, I'd like to bring up the fact that, like I said, it's two shows in one town. It's not one show. And one of the interesting things is that Rez is over at Bally's Paris.
Paris and Dallas.
All right. And we're over at the Caesars Forum, the new one. And if you know where the observation wheel is, we're right behind there. So we're actually right next to each other within walking distance. When I get there, I'll see what the physicality of it, what the reality is. But, shuttling back and forth shouldn't be bad as opposed to like maybe when they were at the Mandalay Bay and we would have been at the convention center. So as opposed to being on the opposite side of towns, we're actually in the same area next to each other, not in the same area, but next to each other.
And Chairman Stevens, one thing we should tell everybody is that we're both contracted with Caesars Entertainment. So everyone will have room rates and room blocks at all Caesars properties. So that's Bally's, Paris, Flamingo, Caesars Palace across the street. There's probably a couple other ones I'm leaving out. And so there'll be plenty of hotel options for everybody, and we're going to integrate these at Caesars Entertainment properties. And to question to you, Chairman Stevens, we're the NIGA show. Everybody knows we like to do a big golf tournament. We usually have our welcome reception and our luncheons, and some of that is going to have to be, once we get the scale of the operation we've got going on out there, and also it's July, it's going to be 100 degrees. Some of these things are going to have to be, played around with, and we're hoping to employ the full suite of options and choices for our attendees. But, what do you think we can do for our folks specifically in the Indian gaming trade show arena?
My father taught me that the fun is in the work. And so my grandmother, who went to 5 boarding schools and waited tables during the Depression, got her degree when she was 70 years old. And my mother, who pretty much raised us with nothing, work, it was the priority. So what I'm going to say is on this is because of the circumstances we're in, and actually golf is probably safer than a lot of other things because you're out in the open. It's kind of at this point probably a long shot to secure a course, but I think that what we'll do is we'll try to get some tee times or maybe some rates, and maybe before or early morning so we get back to work. I think at this time, we may have to forgo the big NIGA golf show. But something happens, if we can get some sponsors, we might be able to fit it in. But again, at minimum, we'll try to find some direction to, because the folks are going to be out there for sure. I might get there early or stay a day over. But I just had a total knee replacement, so I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to hit the ball 300 plus like I normally do.
Wow. It's the knee.
Okay.
And Ernie, we haven't mentioned AIBL at all, Ernie, but AIBL
Right.
will be also part of this show. And Chairman Stevens, you've been to that show before.
Yes.
And Prairie, I guess, couldn't join us today, but we want to incorporate AIBL as well.
And
Yeah,
what is AIBL? What is AIBL? So people
Go ahead, Ernie.
It's a young business leaders association led by Prairie Bighorn Blount. They are teaching and mentoring young people to engage in business, teaching them at very young ages in maybe in high school and on through college as they walk into a business. So it's a mentoring, very powerful mentoring group, teaching folks from, like I said, high school into college about understanding the opportunities in the business world. So hopefully we can be able to get Prairie on. She will be obviously a part of this partnership. And again, she's a very, very successful business leader and has led the organization for several years now. And I think it would be appropriate that we recognize them and empower them to have a strong presence at our show, on both sides.
Absolutely.
Victor, their conference is actually taking place the Saturday, Sunday before our official start date. So it'll take place on the 17th and 18th at Paris. They'll have their normal conference happening that weekend, as it traditionally happens on a weekend, and then it will roll into both RES and NIGA.
Can't wait.
That's what I was proposing, that we would recognize them and empower their presence at both of our respective shows as well.
I agree. We have a couple questions in the chat box that I'd like to get to, and you guys can answer them quick. One from Sean Evans. He asks, will you consider providing rapid COVID tests to attendees and vendors prior to the show? Jason, Derrick, Chad, you want to take this one?
I'll kick it off. I'll just say whatever Clark County, and if you read that governor's order, which we have posted in the chat, he's going to turn this over to the counties at some point, and that's Clark County. So whatever they're going to require of us to get the maximum attendees there safely, we will do, and we will make sure. And I'm sure maybe Chad, you've seen some better technology lately that's come out there.
Yeah, most of them are doing the temperature checks. I think, and even most of the CSERs is doing that. But something unique, and what's something I pushed already is the contact tracing. I've been to a few tribal casinos, and they could tell me whether I've come in contact with anybody with COVID for the last couple of weeks. And so I think pushing that as well. But I think everything is on the table, and we'll be working with state of Nevada and Clark County.
Yeah, I think one of the things that we should say is that it's still a lot up in the air. We, like Jason said, we're still dealing with variants and stuff like that. So I think it's really important that these health and safeties are just the first thing coming in. And probably one of the most important things about all of this is that the fact is, business has been put to the side. Like Derrick has said, he has families and other, entrepreneurial people in Indian country that are just wanting to get back. And that's what we're trying to provide here. And if you look at how historic this is with the National Center and NIGA, which, by the way, usually have a conference. It's only a couple weeks separated. So, not making any projections of stuff, but, this is the business arm of Indian country, so we're getting back to commerce, creating a place where we can get back and do business. And, I think this is really exciting. And I hope people understand that, the momentous occasion of all this and how important it is for Indian country. What was the other one? The other question that I had here was,
I think the question was, one question
Rapid
was,
testing.
would we consider rapid testing? And so we certainly like to do that. It's just, obviously the resources to do that. And so, if there's sponsors out there that's willing to help, with the turnaround, that's something that, we would consider. And I think we
Right.
should,
Right.
just because that is one of the best practices, but taking temperatures and ensuring, masks are worn, I think at the very least we'll do that. But, from the National Center, we're open to that. It's just a matter of, the turnaround. We don't want someone to get tested and then they get the results at the end of the conference. And so the logistics behind that, I think would prevent us from doing rapid testing, but we're open to it. And we know that a lot of businesses are doing that these days. It's just a matter of, how do you, incorporate into the program. So
yeah, I hope hopefully some of our vendors that deal with PPE and some of the others will give us some really good ideas about doing it. I think it's very important that we incentivize vaccinations and testing and stuff like that before people come.
I think we got to keep pushing the vaccinations. I think that we have to look at where we can get that rapid testing done. Certainly looking at temperature check. And I've got through my friend Kareem Abdul-Jabbar and through the Ford Foundation is sending me a pallet of masks. They should be here any day now. So I'm going to distribute those. So once, 6 months from now, there's a lot of folks in Indian country working in PPE, with whether it's the cleansing or the masks, and we really got to have that stuff out there and available, and so make sure we have the right protection and protocols in place. I think we have an appropriate time to plan.
Myron Salva had a comment. He says, I believe it is also will be up to tribal administration to allow tribal employees to attend out-of-state travel. That's a very important point, that it's still up to the government, whether they're allowing travel, and this whole thing has been a crapshoot because, the day we decided, okay, we can make this thing happen, last week, Fauci came out and said by April, it'll be open registration for vaccination. So we're playing the odds, we're playing the game here, and hopefully by the time we get there, at that point in July, it will be a lot easier to get a vaccination. It'll be a lot easier to get testing too. So that's kind of the game that we're playing here. And hopefully, I think that our timing will be right. And from everything that we're seeing and everything that we're hearing, by then it should be a lot easier. And we should have more of the population vaccinated. But I think that's why it's important to have like a safety officer or somebody whose job it is specifically to help facilitate this type of stuff and make sure that, these environments are safe so that the tribal administrators can send their employees and so they can get back to business.
6 months down the road, I think we're going to be in a lot better place. My mother's 81 years old, and she's a kind of a she's retired as an employee for the nation, but she's still an activist, and she comes from that era where she don't trust anybody, considering what's happened to tribes in the past. But we did get her to take her first shot. She's scheduled for her second shot, and she'll probably be there with us. Who knows? But 81 years old, she's still buzzing around the rest. She still drives, so we need her to be safe and secure, and that's this whole thing. So I think that that's where. From day one, President Biden came in and he, promised he would confront this pandemic head on. And I think he's made a great progress in helping us to reopen our economy. And, I just wanted to mention also that we still have tribal, their draft bill in Washington on the COVID relief is still set at $20 billion. And we're going to continue to push for that. And again, in the next 6 months, we really have a lot of work to do. I think once we get to the trade show, we're still going to have a lot of responsibility, but we've got a lot of planning going in, and I think we got to come out of that with a lot more planning. We Indian country has a lot of responsibility, and we need to take that head on. So where we're at for the next 6 months going in, and then we have to really have a plan That's why it's so important to have all the business leaders with the tribal leaders, and we put our minds together, because there's a lot of good ideas out there, but if we don't put them together and hash them out, we're not going to be able to rebuild our economies the way we need to. And I think this is a great, great opportunity to bring the leadership together, both in terms of business and especially in tribal gaming, regulation, and most importantly, our tribal leaders.
And Chairman Stevens, thank you so much for bringing that up, because this COVID relief bill, which may or may not be passed by March 15th, is critical for tribal governments. And there, as you said, there's $20 billion for tribal governments in the draft bill right now. It's got to make it through Congress. This administration is, $20 billion for tribal governments. It's unheard of. And that's going to help your tribal enterprises. That's going to help all your COVID relief on the reservation. And let's be frank, Chairman Watchman, it's going to help get attendees to our show, this $20 billion. And
There's no doubt.
And can you believe that Dr. Fauci is going to be at NCAI in 2 weeks at their executive winter session? I mean, this Dr. Fauci, why they kept him bottled up during this is going to be that they should investigate and impeach Trump for that. Fauci is out there. I'm sorry. But he's out there as an 80-year-old medical, revered around the world for his work in AIDS and all these other viruses. And he's going to join Indian country in a couple weeks and let people know the straight facts about this. And so we've got a busy March to get this COVID relief package through and to hear what Dr. Fauci says and also plan our shows. So thanks.
We got a bunch of Dr. Fauci's in Indian country over the years, and we listened to them, we'd be in a lot better place. So
right.
We got to empower them. And I agree, Jason, Dr. Fauci is an amazing man. In the meantime, we're going to continue to, take this on and continue to give constant updates, our seminars, our summits. We're going to keep working all the way through this. So, we're going to continue to provide a strong presence here in Washington, D.C. and continue to work with economic development. Number one right now being safety, and that's going to be our top priority.
But go ahead, Chairman Watchman. Go ahead.
Yeah, that's true. The national. I just want to echo what Chairman Stevens saying. The National Center is also doing its part. The COVID relief bill obviously is going to bring a lot of capital to Indian country, and so our hopes are very high for a lot of that capital flowing to all the segments in Indian country, especially the business side. And so what we've been saying is that when you look at America, basically half the jobs, half the economy is from the small business, and on the Indian country side, it's probably less than. And so our goal is to surpass what you see in national averages, and so have viable Indian economies where you have the tribal enterprises and the small businesses. And so we think that if you look at the small business section, the sections in the relief bill, there's a lot of capital out there. And so one of the things that we've been looking is how do you reduce the red tape? How do you improve the system and the process so that our very own Native-owned businesses are able to get the capital, able to get the contracts, and able to do the work, for the casino, for the tribe, for IHS, for BIA, and then for the public in general. And so, but we got to get there. And so, as Ernie said, we have 6 months to thoughtfully plan the conference and also work with the administration so that when the relief bill is passed, hopefully, like I said, by mid-March, we'll see a lot of capital. Basically, that's how I look at capital, a huge influx of capital to Indian country. And so from the National Center side, we obviously want to assist our businesses, I won't say to be responsible, but to have a business mind to deploy that capital as investment so that we have returns down the road, and so how do we build the infrastructure? How do we make it so that we can enjoy the benefits for centuries to come, for our children? And so, just a few thoughts from, myself and my colleagues on the National Center Board of the Directors. So great stuff coming ahead.
And it is great stuff. And, I think one of the important things is the fact that, RES and NIGA are together for the first time. And like I said, this is the business side of the brain of Indian country. And the fact that we're here working and creating opportunities in commerce and business, I think that is the bottom line of what we're trying to do here for Indian country. You know what? We're running a little over, but before I go, Chad, would you like to say something? First of all, thank you so much for attending at the last minute. We really appreciate. I felt this was really informative, and this is, like I said, the first step in a very successful enterprise. So, Chad, would you like to say something before you go?
Yeah, thanks again for the invitation. And Jason, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe the information is updated on both of our websites.
Yes.
And so as far as registration and updates and everything else, so the press releases went out today, so everybody can check those out. There was a lot of comments that we didn't get to. I just want to make sure that everybody knows, and there's a lot of comments on like COVID air filtration systems and contact tracing. We're going to do everything on our part to make sure it's a safe event. And we're going to follow all the guidelines we can and even go beyond that. So I think it's something where we're going to follow the safety measures and make sure that everybody's protected to the best we can. And so, but we're really excited about this event. A lot of stuff's going to happen in the next 6 months, but continue to monitor both NIGA and NCAIED's websites for updates. Follow us on social media. Will probably the best place to actually get updates, real time. But thanks again for the invitation, and we're looking forward to it.
All right, Chad.
Well, we should do this again as a follow-up, maybe
Right.
April.
Oh,
May,
absolutely.
just kind of
Absolutely.
update where the two organizations are. I recommend that we do that.
Yeah, this will be the first of many. I think it's important
Right.
that we keep people informed, and I'm sure everyone's going to be checking in. Chairman Stevens, we'll save the best for last.
Okay,
Chairman
thanks.
Stevens, is that the Super Bowl trophy Tom Brady threw from one boat to the other?
No.
I see it back there.
Oh.
Okay, remember I told you about this executive director, so he's a good guy, and I thought that hypercontract thing was what you were talking about. I'll look for a different definition for that, but we're rivals too, so, and both of our teams did. I don't even know if his team made the playoffs, but it's a
We
down.
did.
Okay.
Steelers, we're trying to forget about it. Yeah.
Okay, but yeah, no, that's not that. That's a Bart Starr signed Super Bowl replica trophy. Don't get me started, or I'll get my gold medal from the National Indian Championships back in '78. So, I wanted to say in closing, everybody, thank you so much to all you warriors, and I always talk about all the women warriors of my life. My grandmother, she lived 103 years old, and my mother's still buzzing around here someplace, thinking she's got to take care of everybody else. And we try to get her to stay close to home, but as long as she got a good running car and a driver's license, she's still moving around and still helping people like she's done her whole life. And so, we're really, and the most important woman that's ever done anything for me is that poor lady's had to deal with me for the first time in 30 years, being home for almost a year now. So she would like me to get back out there on the road. So would her 17 grandchildren. But in closing, I would say that just a couple names that I would like to pay tribute to is Max Osceola, who died from the COVID. Elder Joe Benitez, the elder over at Cabazon in California, and just taken alive up there in Sandy Rock. These are all very important people, and they're just three of so many that have been taken by this terrible illness. And all the more reason that we got to stay safe and stay strong and stay in prayer. Thank you, everybody, and I'll pray for everybody here when I lay my head to rest tonight.
Thanks, everyone. Jason, I think this was a great show. I'd like to remind everyone, if you're an associate member, we're going to be having another webcast on Friday to talk more of the logistics of the conference. I want to make sure that if you're an associate member, that you're watching that too. Jason, thank you, man. This was a really good one. Yeah, thank our guests. Thank everyone, and Mary-Charlotte, everyone in the back. And we'll be talking next week again too. So see you next week. Thanks, bye.
Okay, be safe all.
Hypochondriac is good.